When the Sacramento Kings surprised the NBA world by finishing third in a stacked Western Conference, winning 48 games, coming off the prior season having won just 30 games and finished 13th in the West, Kings fans were on cloud nine after securing a berth to the postseason for the first time in 16 years, ending the longest playoff-less drought in the league. And while the Kings would go on to lose to the defending champions and Golden State Warriors in a hard-fought first-round series in 7 games, despite that, everything for the Kings was trending upward, with the budding young star entering his prime in De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis with his dominance in the post and acting as a hub on offense with his playmaking, to the young rookie in Keegan Murray they just drafted with the number 4 overall pick, showing out to be one of the brightest young shooters in the league, Malik turning it up a notch and having one of his best seasons of his career. The Kings would finish out the season with the best offensive rating we had seen, at the time anyway, in NBA history. A fast-paced and spaced team that made it damn near impossible to defend with their ball movement and quick transition play. Suffice it to say, this team was on the up and up and looked to be another promising young team in the Western Conference, until they didn't. Because while the Kings had their incredible success on offense in the 22-23 season, their biggest issue was their subpar defense, and while their defense improved a bit last season, the high-efficient offense seemed to be a bit of an outlier for them, with guys like Kevin Huerter dropping off with his three-point shooting to the worst of his career, Harrison Barnes also declining in play on both ends of the floor. The Kings would see a big drop on their three-point shooting. They were still able to get up a lot of shots like they did last season, but weren't hitting them at the same clip. They weren't able to get to the free throw line as effectively and would finish dead last in the league in free throw percentage, shooting just 74% from the line on the season as a team. And conversely, they were sending their opponents to the free throw line more than most teams and giving up a lot of easy points by committing fouls at a high rate. And while the Kings still looked competitive and would actually only win 2 less games than they did the prior season, with the increased competition in the Western Conference, 46 wins was only good enough to finish 9th in the West, and the Kings would fail to make it into the postseason by way of the play-in after losing the second game to the New Orleans Pelicans, ending their season and missing the playoffs yet again after it looked like the franchise had finally turned a corner. And so going into this offseason, the Kings knew they were at a critical point in which they had to start making aggressive moves now to maximize the primes of their 2 stars in Fox and Sabonis, building the proper roster around them to fit their needs, and making big pushes to try and get them back into contention. And so far, that has been more than evident in the Kings' aggressive pursuit in re-signing some of their current players and going after big names on the free agent market. But is it going to be enough for the Kings to not only get back to where they were just a couple of seasons ago and getting to the playoffs, but also in getting them over the hump and into contention for a title, or even just winning their first playoff series in 2 decades? Well, that's what we'll be talking about further in this video. As always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, then be sure to subscribe to help the channel grow, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, let's take a look at what the Kings have done so far this offseason. First off, going into the summer, it was uncertain whether or not they would actually be able to retain Malik. The Kings were only able to offer him so much money because of his early bird rights. It was expected that he would command a big payday on the open market from teams like the Orlando Magic, the Sixers. They were expected to pursue him heavily, but before free agency opened, and given the new rules of the CBA, which allows for teams to start negotiating with their own free agents after the NBA Finals conclude, the Kings were able to be aggressive in keeping Monk and ensuring that he never hit unrestricted free agency, signing him to a 4-year, $78 million deal, which I know some might think that that's a lot for a guy like Monk, but really, when you consider the rise in the NBA salary cap with a new TV deal, the fact that Monk is one of the better 3-and-D players in the NBA, but also improved his passing greatly last season, super athletic, higher motor in his ability to slash the basket, I mean, it would have been a big loss for the Kings to let Monk walk in free agency. And so to get him for less than $20 million annually, a contract that is going to look more and more favorable over time with the rise in the salary cap, is a huge win for the Kings to bring back the 6th Man of the Year runner-up. In addition to that, they also re-signed Alex Len on a cheap 1-year deal for $3.3 million, and you might think, not that notable, but he's a decent backup 5 to give Sabonis a breather. But of course, the biggest signing of them all, and you could argue this has been the biggest free agency acquisition in Kings history, is landing DeMar DeRozan in that sign and trade deal with the Chicago Bulls. By getting DeMar, they would be able to move off of Harrison Barnes' contract. DeMar is without question an upgrade over Harrison Barnes. And look, as a Bulls fan, what I'll say is the Kings and their fans are absolutely gonna love DeMar DeRozan. I may not be that psyched about the fit and whether this is really the move to get them over the top, which I'll talk about, but all I can say is you're gonna love DeMar's work ethic, The man never takes a day off. He's damn near available to play every game. He's done that for most of his career and gives it his all when he's out there on the court. He is a master in the fourth quarter and closing out games, knows what to do to get his shot, and always cool, calm, and collected in those high pressure moments. Yeah, you can sit here and say DeMar doesn't fit well in today's NBA because he's not a three-point shooter, but he is elite at damn near every other facet of the game on offense. The master of the mid-range, an incredible finisher at the rim, and also a really underrated playmaker. People don't talk about just how good DeMar's court vision is in getting his teammates involved on offense. And then, of course, he's a great mentor, leader, can help the young guys with their development, a pure professional on and off the court. The Kings are absolutely going to love this signing. And when you now combine Fox and DeMar in the fourth quarter, man, look out. You're talking about two of the most lethal clutch players in the league that are the best in closing out games. That is going to be super exciting duo to watch on a nightly basis. And it appears, at the time of me recording this anyway, that the Kings are not done. There's been rumblings of them looking to pursue Kyle Kuzma or even Lauri Markkanen and making all-in type moves, trades, where we're talking about multiple first-round picks to try and acquire one of these guys. Obviously, Markkanen is going to cost you more than Kuzma, but they're looking to make another splash where they're not just trying to get back into the playoffs again, but actually looking to make a deep run in the playoffs and even consider themselves to be in contention for a championship. I don't really like the fit with Kuzma as much, especially since the word is the Wizards are looking for 2 first-round picks to part with him, which I think is way too much to offer for a guy like Kyle Kuzma. But Markkanen, adding him to the roster to add yet another scoring threat, a floor spacer, another big alongside Sabonis, the ultimate dynamic scoring twin towers, that I think would move the needle for the Kings and taking them to the next level. The problem is the Kings would really need to go all in and mortgage most of their future to try and get Lauri Markkanen. And if you're going down that route, you have to be sure that this is a team that is truly going to compete for a title if you're giving up your future. Here's where I struggle with the Kings even after signing one of my favorite players in DeMar DeRozan. How are they going to solve for their poor defense? Because you could argue their defense actually got worse after the moves they made this offseason. Not a lot worse, but when you're already a bad defensive team, you can't really afford to downgrade in that area even further. Harrison Barnes, not saying he was a great defender by any means, but they'll miss some of his length on the interior. Duarte is another solid defender that they've lost in the DeMar DeRozan sign and trade acquisition. And for the guys they brought in, not great defenders, although I will say I do like the two-way potential of Devin Carter, who is that lockdown perimeter defender that we saw in college, who knows how to stay on his man and fight through screens, and a big-time hustle player. But we're not even sure how much Carter's actually going to play this season, given he's going to have shoulder surgery and could be out for some time to start the year. And even when he is cleared to play, how much time is he actually going to get in cracking the rotation with a team comprised of veterans who are looking to win now? And so I think the Kings offense is going to be phenomenal. I'm not worried about the spacing challenges with DeMar and DeMar taking the ball out of Fox's hands or the slow down pace and half-court offense because of DeMar. I mean, DeMar knows how to fit in any roster and get the most out of his situation and get the most out of his teammates and defer to them when needed. I'm not concerned about that. They're going to be one of the best offensive teams in the league next season and one of the most dynamic offensive teams with their ability to score at all 3 levels, given the pool of talent they have, especially when you add DeMar, who is the king of the mid-range and one of the best players in the league at getting to the foul line, something the Kings struggled with greatly last season. So yeah, I'll be shocked if the Kings don't finish top 5 in the NBA on offense. But I also won't be shocked if they finish in the bottom 5 on defense. And if the reports are true about going after Kuzma or Markkanen, I mean, those guys aren't making your defense any better. And while we live in an NBA world where there is a hyper focus on offensive output, once you get to the playoffs, the defense kicks up a notch, and you're not going to get very far if you're not at best an average defensive team. So in my view, I get why the Kings are wanting to make another splash and land another all-star like Lauri Markkanen. To me, though, they already have their 2 stars, and you could even say a 3rd star in DeMar DeRozan. They need to be looking at high-level role players, guys that are defensive specialists, and being aggressive in landing them to round out their roster. I mean, could they get a guy like Jared Allen if the Cavs are making him available? Hell, maybe get a veteran rim protector like Brook Lopez, who's on an expiring deal. I don't know. There are a lot of other guys as well, depending on who is potentially made available in a trade. All I know is the Kings have to address their defensive woes if they truly want to take this team to the next level. I do like what they're doing, though. I love seeing a small market team who has struggled for so many years really being assertive now and trying to make this team better and actually outworking some of their competitors in the West who needed to make improvements to their roster, like the Lakers, Warriors, even the Clippers. And someone who wants to see DeMar do well, have a chance at making a run at a title at the end of his career, I will be following the Kings closely and cheering them on. So let me know what you guys think. What do you think of the Kings' moves so far this offseason? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.